Every day brings a new story of white people messing with black people, hassling them, arresting them, pointing guns at them, tasering them, all for no reason whatsoever. You know what? We should just take a minute to really consider, to search our hearts, search our souls, question ourselves. All this time, have we been wrong? Have we been unfair to black people, falsely accusing them of crime and violence wildly out of proportion? Have we? Nah. Let's take a look at a couple of recent accusations. The worst one is the first thing you can be accused of in this world. A restaurant owner apparently was racially insensitive.
Hey Morgan, yesterday we showed you just a portion of the video released from the restaurant. Today, we were given new video from the people accusing the business of wrongdoing. Video obtained by Fox 46 shows the aftermath of an encounter at Captain Steve's Family Seafood Restaurant in Fort Mill on June 1st. The family, calling themselves the Fort Mill 16, says they were there to celebrate a 72-year-old veteran's birthday. They have accused the restaurant of making them leave in racist remarks.
It erupted into being challenged by a waitress over and over, repeatedly over and over again, to the point where, in my words, she almost provoked me. And so tempers were flared, but at the end of the day, we do know that the 16 individuals that I've talked to, the family members, basically have said that she said, we don't want your black dog.
You can see York County deputies pulling up at the restaurant after the encounter. Civil rights activist John Burnett says he believes somewhere in this portion of the video is where that phrase was said.
One particular waitress in particular, she's in a blue shirt. While Captain Steve and another waitress or manager is talking to the family, she goes over his shoulder, so to speak, and says something. Because of the sound, you can't really hear it, but we know something was said in a negative manner, and I believe that the family here that have told me what she said, those are facts. It's the truth.
Ballot voting machines that Georgia's buying haven't been ordered. The state is yet to decide which company gets the $150 million.
Demonstrations and press conferences.
Again, yesterday we showed you just a portion of the video released from the restaurant. Today, we were given new video from the people accusing the business of wrongdoing. Video obtained by Fox 46 shows the aftermath of an encounter at Captain Steve's Family Seafood Restaurant in Fort Mill on June 1st. The family, calling themselves the Fort Mill 16, says they were there to celebrate a 72-year-old veteran's birthday. They have accused the restaurant of making them leave in racist remarks.
It erupted into being challenged by a waitress over and over, repeatedly over and over again, to the point where, in my words, she almost provoked him. And so tempers was flared, but at the end of the day, we do know that the 16 individuals that I've talked to, the family members, basically have said that she said, we don't want your black dog.
You can see York County deputies pulling up at the restaurant after the encounter. Civil rights activist John Burnett says he believes somewhere in this portion of the video is where that phrase was said.
One particular waitress in particular, she's in a blue shirt. While Captain Steve and another waitress or manager is talking to the family, she goes over his shoulder, so to speak, and says something. Because of the sound, you can't really hear it, but we know something was said in a negative manner, and I believe that the family here that have told me what she said, those are facts. It's the truth. That we would be rallying and having demonstrations and press conferences for nothing. Somebody said something to upset this family, upset this 72-year-old veteran. And then we see her being moved back by another waitress as if to say calm down, and then she comes again and do the same thing over again.
Barnett is now calling for action of not just the waitress, but the owner as well.
We now have to kind of zoom in on the owner and find out why he didn't do what he was supposed to do in reference to discipline this waitress. So she needs to be fired, and discipline needs to take place, and so he's literally, disacknowledging anything that ever happened.
The Fort Mill 16, let that name go down in infamy. And let's head over to a party with 100 fellas in the streets. But that had nothing to do with anything. The cops just came up and started picking black people out at random, tasering them, cursing at them, doing all sorts of bad things to them for no reason whatsoever.
Davida, I spoke to a blind man who says an officer kicked down his door and pointed a gun at his family. The police chief told me body camera video he's looked at doesn't show his officers pointing a gun at anyone. Video does show an officer tasing Ivan Torrey as he sat right here in front of his home. This video shows a Monroe police officer tasing Ivan Torrey and dragging him out of a chair in front of his home. I asked Torrey what went through his mind.
I was so shocked and getting shocked that I couldn't even really think.
Police arrested him that night.
Obstruction of an officer.
Did you obstruct the officer?
I did not at all.
It started when police arrived at the Monroe Estates townhomes around 11 Saturday night. More than 100 teens blocked the street during a party.
One officer was in the road. Go get in the house.
Torrey says that's when the officer tased him. The police chief has suspended the officer, but not for the tasing.
Cursing back towards the citizens, and it's not going to be tolerated.
The chief says his officers were cursed at, called names. He says they were there for valid reasons, giving lawful commands. The chief says the video doesn't tell the whole story.
You're only seeing a small portion of what actually took place.
Johnny Smith is blind. He says officers kicked in his door and held his family at gunpoint.
They threw my mom on the floor and put their knees on her back.
The chief says officers were looking for suspects they were chasing. Shanna Torrey says her kids will never forget seeing their father tased.
My kids was standing in my doorway screaming for their daddy. Daddy, daddy, and it was breaking my heart.
And the suspended officer must undergo remedial and corrective training.
So the one cop's being suspended for cursing back at a citizen. Oh, no. It's way worse than that. This guy ought to be fired, arrested, tried, and convicted for forgetting that crime is the new black entitlement. You know, if there's one thing that we see around here a lot, at least on the internet, and on television, newspaper, radio, everywhere we go, we see stories that white people are roaming the country with high-powered weapons, shooting up people all the time. But yet we look in the newspapers, the radio, everywhere else, what we see is the reality is that 75, 80, 85, 90, 95% of mass shooters in this country are black. Do you need some more examples?
Violent day on the streets of Newark. Two separate shootings happening just blocks from one another in a span of minutes. 7 people were shot in a hail of bullets. One of the victims, who survived a shooting just weeks ago, was killed. Eyewitness News reporter Lucy Yang spoke with concerned people who live nearby.
A rainy afternoon in Newark turned deadly when shots were fired on 2 open streets. The first blast of bullets was on Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and Spruce Street. It left 1 man dead and 2 women injured. 5 minutes later on South Orange Avenue and Fairmont, more gunfire. This time, 4 men are wounded.
Police are investigating a shooting that left 5 people hurt in the Memphis community of Raleigh.
It happened at an apartment complex at James Road and Jackson Avenue last night. WMC Action News 5's Brandon Richard live with the latest. Brandon.
Well, in the last couple of minutes, we've noticed several police cars leaving the scene here, and investigators are still trying to figure out what exactly led to the shooting here at the Huntington Hills apartment complex. Right now, they're not sure if the 5 people who were shot, if all of them were victims, or if some of them may actually be suspects. But all of this started shortly before midnight. That's when Memphis police say that a sheriff's deputy noticed a car that had broken down near Austin P. Highway and Yale Road. That deputy stopped to help and then realized someone in that car had been shot. Police say 4 other people showed up to the hospital with gunshot wounds. We're told all their injuries are considered non-critical.
And let's not forget Walmart. Non-black people are always messing with the fellas at Walmart.
Gina, that's right. That Walmart greeter telling me that he was simply doing his job that night. He says sometimes cashiers forget to scan an item, so he sends people back to pay for them. He says that was the case that night, but instead the suspect, as you said, he snapped, and now Craig Valentine is out on a $1,000 bond.
He punched on my face with the closed right hand. Then I fell down on the ground.
The video is still too tough to watch for 72-year-old Mohinder Randhawa. He refuses to see it. The elderly Walmart greeter says he never saw it coming. Punched so hard that he blacked out.
My left upper lip was broken from here. Blood started out. And inside also there was a cut about half an inch.
You're charged with the felony offense of injury to an elderly person.
Investigators say 42-year-old Craig Valentine is the person seen in this video assaulting Randhawa the night of June 14th at a Walmart in Cyprus. The Walmart greeter told me that when he checked Valentine's receipt, he noticed that a case of Gatorade had not been paid for.
I told him, if you want, you can scan and take it.
But Randhawa says Valentine got angry, yelling out he had paid for everything. Then, as you see in the video, he pushes him and then punches him.
I never told him you are stealing.
But in his...
If you've been down to Houston lately, it's not a pretty picture.
We now believe that we can bring justice to Josue's family.
We never wavered. Chief Acevedo said over his dead body, that we would give up on this case.
We cannot bring back Josue, but we can seek justice in his memory and protect other children in our community.
It took more than 3 years, but police believe they have found the man who murdered 11-year-old Josue Flores. Tonight, we are looking into how detectives finally got what they needed to make an arrest. Good evening. This horrific crime shocked the city and angered people in Josue's neighborhood.
Josue was walking home from school when he was stabbed to death. Andre Jackson was indicted today for Josue's murder. He had been arrested before in connection with the case. We have live team coverage on the quest for justice for Josue. We start with David Gonzalez, live from the Harris County Jail downtown.
Hey guys, Andre Jackson was arrested this morning in Baytown, and police say that they had been watching him for the last several days as they waited for evidence to be tested at a Florida lab. Well, the results of that newly tested DNA came in today, and they say that it directly links Jackson to the murder. They now believe that they can bring justice to Josue's family. Jackson had been arrested before for Josue's murder, but those charges were dropped.
Couple of fellas kill a taxi driver. Has anybody ever heard of that before? Does anybody have any reason there to believe there's a pattern of crime, violence, and murder there? Yeah, look it up. Get back to me. So the fellas are always going around falsely saying that white people are shooting up the country, mass shooters, when that is not true. Here's another favorite little fairy tale. White people are always rioting after major sporting events. They tried that last year at the Super Bowl. That lasted about as long as it took to find a video of 100 black people rampaging through a 7-Eleven, destroying property, stealing stuff, laughing, and laughing. I don't know if this is better or worse than that occasion. This is up in Toronto. Down in Clayton County, a fella dispatched an Asian person. We don't have any other details on that yet, except save for this. Black on Asian violence is so wildly out of proportion. I just can't get my mind around the fact why more Asians are not extremely unhappy about it.
Please, sir. I want some more.
What? Okay, all you racially insensitive brutes, here's the question. Is it so clear to you that white people are messing with black people so much, so often, so badly that even a blind man could see it? Or is black crime and violence wildly out of proportion, as is the denial, deceit, and delusion that accompanies it as night accompanies day? In the meantime, probably not a good idea to make the black kids angry.